The year 2024 is the Year of the Dragon. This might explain why One Piece has, so far this year, focused significantly on the celestial dragons. Also, in the cover stories, Momonosuke, who transforms into a dragon, has appeared. There might be developments with other dragons later this year. But why is it the Year of the Dragon? This ties to the Chinese zodiac, a cycle familiar in Japan, which assigns an animal to each year in a 12-year cycle. Many of you might have seen this chart in the SBS question corners. The concept originates from ancient Chinese calendrical systems, which are used to order years, as well as time, directions, and events. Notably, the direction of the ox and tiger in this zodiac, the northeast, is known as the Demon's Gate. In Egghead, the term northeast has been emphasized frequently because that's the direction from Egghead to Elbaf, from where the two giants hailed, known as the Aka Oni and Ao Oni. Yes, it means that two demons appeared from the northeast, the direction known as the Demon's Gate. In the final scene of chapter 1110, they used a technique called Taiyo Noko to split a sandworm in half. Did anyone catch the wordplay involved? In Japanese, the technique's name, Taiyo Noko, translates directly to sun saw. However, if you change the kanji but keep the pronunciation the same, it means child of the sun. This raises an interesting question about the character Nika, who is often referred to as the sun god. The phrase child of the sun suggests that perhaps Nika really is a deity born from the sun itself. Oda-sensei cleverly utilizes the Japanese language to create puns and wordplay. These playful twists often hold significant clues to the mysteries of One Piece. In this video, I'll delve into the nuanced details that might be missed by non-native Japanese speakers, covering the recent chapters from 1106 to 1101. Additionally, I collected questions for the upcoming Volume 109 SBS session. Here are the top 10 questions chosen from the submissions, along with some from my Patreon members. Feel free to like any question you'd be interested in asking Oda-sensei himself. I regularly run this segment, so if you're interested, join us for the upcoming video discussions on the Japanese translations of chapters 1111 to 1150, where I'll gather more questions for Oda-sensei. In the final scene, when Dory and Brogy appeared, Brogy said, "We came to pick you up, Mugiwara." This phrasing feels slightly awkward in Japanese, where came to help would be more natural. There are two possible reasons why Oda-sensei might have chosen this expression. First, it could simply mean that they intended to welcome Luffy as the sun god to Elbaf. Their duel in Little Garden began because they continued to obey the words of their god. Dory said, for example, "If we cannot decide the battle in the village, we shall accept the judgment of the god of Elbaf," meaning they fought according to their god's command. He seemed to prioritize the word of God above all else when speaking to Luffy. Thus, it's reasonable to believe that for them, welcoming the sun god was more important than continuing their duel. And their return from Little Garden to Elbaf was to invite the sun god of modern times to Elbaf. The second reason is that someone always comes to pick up someone during a buster call. In O'Hara, Saul came to get Robin. At Eni's lobby, the Going Merry came for the Straw Hats, and at Egghead, they came to welcome Nika. The same phrase, "came to pick you up," was used when Mary arrived. Unfortunately, as you know, Saul was frozen in O'Hara, and after escaping from Eni's lobby, the fate of Mary is well known. This might imply that Dory and Brogy also face the risk of becoming sacrifices. Dory left us with a profound line. This world operates only on inevitabilities. This phrase recalls that globally popular character from One Piece. Makino once said, "Luffy has always dreamed of becoming a pirate," to which he replied, "Is it a dream or destiny?" The word Sadami, meaning predestined fate, suggests that Luffy was destined to become a pirate from the start. It's likely because he knows secrets related to the meaning of D and the Void Century. Recently, his meaningful expressions have been increasingly highlighted. Interestingly, his name is Whoop Slap. The term whoopee is humorously used to refer to a financially well-off retiree. Additionally, the phrase whoop whoop is indeed used in Australian English to describe an extremely remote or insignificant place, often humorously implying that it is far from civilization or deep in the countryside. This makes it a fitting name for the village chief of Dawn Island, which is located in a remote area. But why is his first name Slap? Personally, I think it relates to music. There is a bass guitar technique called slap, which in Japanese is sometimes referred to as chopper. It's likely that Tony Tony, the surname Chopper received from Hilalook, originates from the band Tony Tony Tony. Additionally, the kingdom where Chopper was born is named Drum. The oldest pure human resident of that kingdom, Dr. Kureha, also seems to know something about the will of D. And Dr. Vegapunk's name likely incorporates the musical term punk rock. Punk records may also draw inspiration from Tower Records. Since rock and bluegrass are names of music genres, they may somehow be connected to the D as well. As the truth about the Void Century and the real story of D unfolds, we might see more musical terms used in techniques like dawn cymbal, dawn snare, or dawn hi-hat. If you know of any other music-related names in One Piece that could be linked to D, please share them in the comments. Actually, this chapter contains a significant translation error. One version translates it as, "If you force surrender, it will be painless," but this completely erases the original meaning. The statement originally meant to simultaneously split two people, a man and a woman, in half, resulting in 4 parts. This phrase was used during Japan's Edo period when adultery could be punishable by death. If a husband caught his wife committing adultery, he could legally bind the couple and kill them, cutting them such that their bodies would be divided into 4 parts. This expression was used to control adulterous men. In this way, adultery became an excuse to kill the couple. Similarly, Oda-sensei may have used this old Japanese expression to imply that for Borsalino, following Saturn's orders becomes an excuse to kill. Anyway, it's still a mystery who has been providing Luffy with food, and it remains to be seen who has been transporting it this far. Do you think there's a chance that Borsalino delivered these foods? By the way, there's also his favorite ramen here. Let's look at the final scene. One Marine says, "I hear something," to which another responds, "You shouldn't be able to hear anything with all this noise." However, Bonnie's voice clearly reached the pacifistas. This connects to a mention in chapter 1102 that Vegapunk significantly enhanced Kuma's hearing. This ties back to a scene from the Alabasta arc. In the original version of One Piece, it's clear that Luffy's concept of a punch distinctly differs from Bonnie's perception. Some translations have rendered it as, "I was going for a big rubbery attack like you," and, "For the record, this is how you punch." However, let's consider the nuance in the original Japanese version where punch wo utsu translates to punch. The verb utsu varies between Luffy and Bonnie in their statements. Bonnie uses utsu in the sense of to strike something strongly against something else, a term also familiar in baseball. On the other hand, Luffy's use of utsu means to fire something, like a bullet or an arrow. The man who inspired Luffy to become a pirate, Shanks, taught him that being a pirate means staking your life. The moment you point a pistol at someone, you must be prepared to risk your life. This belief is evident in Luffy's first move. This suggests that Luffy's punch is not just any punch, but one with the same resolve as pointing a gun at someone. In contrast, Bonnie, who has not yet decided on her resolve as a pirate, uses utsu simply to mean to hit. Her becoming a pirate was merely a means to search for Kuma. Similarly, Bellamy did not truly understand what it means to be a pirate. Pirates in the world of One Piece are people who set out to sea in pursuit of treasure or dreams, the romance of adventure. Bellamy, being a realist, was not truly a pirate in this sense. That's why when he asked Luffy if he knew how to punch, his use of utsu was the same as Bonnie's, lacking the resolve of a true pirate. In Dressrosa, Bellamy also lacked the resolve to stake his life in his attempt to kill Luffy and ultimately left piracy. Therefore, two possibilities exist for Bonnie. If she uses this verb when she punches in the future, it may signify that she has become a true pirate. However, if she decides to bet on Nika instead, she might quit piracy, much like Bellamy. Personally, I think Bonnie will leave piracy and head to Fishman Island. After that, I believe she will return to the Sorbet Kingdom in South Blue and reign as a princess. In this chapter, the man Bonnie approved of, Sanji, guards against an attack from Borsalino and says, "Love is stronger than light." To this, Borsalino responds, "If that's all there is to explain it, then physics would be meaningless." This does not simply show Sanji's lack of education, but hints at the existence and power of love in the world of One Piece. I discuss Sanji's power of love in detail in this video. It's often said that one of the models for Vegapunk is Einstein, who once wrote to his daughter, "There is an extremely powerful force that, so far, science has not found a formal explanation for. It is a force that includes and governs all others, and is even behind any phenomenon operating in the universe and has not yet been identified by us. This universal force is love." The fact that Kuma, supposedly completely devoid of self, appeared at Egghead to save his daughter might be attributed to the peculiarities of the pacifista, but it's clear that the source of this power is love. Additionally, the fact that Nami, who has not mastered armament haki, can inflict damage on Luffy, who has a rubber body, might not just be a comedic element, but could also be due to the power of love. Oda-sensei is known for embedding significant plot elements within comic scenes. While I don't personally like attributing everything to the power of love, I do think there is a certain romance in acknowledging forces that remain unexplained. Moreover, the power of love is likely to be highlighted more in upcoming stories, with Kuma and Bonnie's backstory being the first step in this direction. Let's talk about the Blackbeard pirate's appearance in the final scene. When Katarina Devon touches Saturn, she declares, "Mission complete," and they prepare to leave Egghead. Many might feel something off here. Indeed, the Blackbeard pirate's ship had been anchored near Egghead since the day before the incident. At that point, the Navy hadn't yet arrived at Egghead, and Saturn had kept his journey towards Egghead a secret from everyone. Considering this, it's possible that Devon touching Saturn and acquiring the power to transform into one of the 5 elders wasn't their original plan. Let's explore the possibility that their goal was indeed Saturn. To resolve this inconsistency, we might consider that the Blackbeard pirates had either planted a spy within the world government's fleet or had access to inside information from Mariageois. One possibility that emerges is that Lafitte, who often operates separately, had obtained insider information from Mariageois. While he is a mysterious character, he appears to be one of Blackbeard's most loyal subordinates so far. Given that Blackbeard's ultimate goal is to take over the world, it's conceivable that Lafitte infiltrated Mariageois to scope out opportunities for invasion. Additionally, a more immediate goal of Blackbeard was to make Hachinosu a member nation of the world government. Perhaps Lafitte's infiltration led to him acquiring information about Saturn's movement towards Egghead. This theory explains why the Blackbeard pirates were already stationed near Egghead the day before the incident. Another possibility is that upon learning of Saturn's appearance at Egghead, the Blackbeard pirates changed their objective. However, if that's the case, why did they come to Egghead in the first place? Personally, I think they originally intended for Katarina Devon to touch Vegapunk in order to impersonate him. In any case, to make Hachinosu a member of the world government, the Blackbeard pirates would need to negotiate with key figures such as the Five Elders or other important government officials. But as a Yonko, it would be nearly impossible for them to meet these officials directly. Hence, they might have planned to use Vegapunk's guise to gain an audience with the Five Elders. Moreover, since the Blackbeard pirates confronted the Seraphim in chapter 1059, they may have thought that by impersonating Vegapunk, they could control the Seraphim. In the end, it was revealed that Devon and Augur, after touching Saturn, did not participate in the conflict at Egghead and decided to leave. There are questions about where Blackbeard's ship was hiding around Egghead, surrounded by over 100 warships. But what's even more intriguing is their next move. The ability to take on someone else's appearance is often used in plans to overthrow governments. Remember how Bentham impersonated King Cobra. This led to the anger of the Alabasta rebels. Higurashi, who impersonated Momonosuke, allowed Kaido to take advantage of Odin's vulnerability and eventually take control of Wano. Most of the citizens in the world of One Piece have only seen the Five Elders in portraits. Thus, the ability the Blackbeard pirates have gained could be a critical piece in their quest to conquer the world. It's likely that they will eventually make their move to usurp Imu's position. Chapter 1108 begins with a scene featuring Caribou. Caribou has traveled with the Straw Hat Pirates on various occasions, from Sabaody Archipelago to Egghead. His nickname is Wet-Haired Caribou. In Japanese, the word kami can mean both hair and god. The Wet God. This might partly embody a role similar to Susanoo, the god of rain in Japanese mythology. This video discusses the connections between Luffy and Amaterasu and Blackbeard and Tsukuyomi. Susanoo, who is the troublesome brother of Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi, often causes trouble. It's interesting to think of Caribou, who possesses information about ancient weapons named after gods, moving between the Straw Hats and the Blackbeard pirates, reminiscent of a troublesome deity. Interestingly, Luffy's favorite food is meat, Blackbeard's is cherry pie, and Caribou's favorite lies in between, meat pie. Another point of interest is that Bonnie now calls Luffy and Sanji by their first names. As of chapter 1106, she referred to Luffy as Straw Hat. In Japan, it's common to address someone by their surname unless you are close, so using first names can signify trust. In the world of One Piece, pirates and marines usually call each other by their epithets. Most notable pirates refer to Luffy as Straw Hat. Only a few, like members of the Red Hair Pirates and Alvida, call him Luffy. Buggy and Arlong, however, have derogatorily referred to him as that rubber bastard. When Frankie mentioned that his nakama were in a laboratory above the clouds, the giant responded by asking, "Is that in Sky Island?" To many residents of the Blue Planet, Sky Island is merely a mythical place, unknown even to Kuma, a revolutionary who has traveled the world. This likely ties back to the Void Century. Despite the existence of battleships and sea trains, the general lack of technology for skyward travel in the world of One Piece might be due to the world government having inconveniences with the sky. Contrarily, for the giants, Sky Island seems to be a familiar concept. As evidence, Topman referred to Dory and Broggy as individuals of profound destiny, suggesting they are also part of this inconvenience. Additionally, the map of Skypiea features giants that resemble Vikings or demons. In this video, I explore the theory that the origin of the giant race might be linked to elements found in Sky Island. For more on the origins of the giants, continue watching this video. In this chapter, Saturn has transformed into a completely spider-like form, and his eyes have gone completely crazy. This is probably the form he previously showed to Sabo. Sanji commented, "You've really lost a lot of your human aspect, haven't you?" Given that he has seen Zoan-type transformations like Kaido and Queen before, his remark suggests that the Five Elders transformation might not be due to a devil fruit ability. It somewhat resembles the eyes of space pirates. Actually, the Five Elders differ distinctly from other celestial dragons. While many celestial dragons merely disdain humans, the Five Elders seem to despise them as a species, showing a hatred reminiscent of characters like Arlong and Hody. It's hard to believe the Five Elders were born purely evil, suggesting something fundamental in their past might have profoundly shaken their beliefs, perhaps a history of suffering at the hands of humans similar to the Fishmen. Luffy, too, has a sinister look in his eyes this chapter. His statement, "I'm not about to let you guys escape," echoes something about Roger. Garp described Roger as follows. Even faced with a vastly superior enemy force, Roger wouldn't run because his loved ones were behind him. If he ran with them, his crew would be put in danger. To be precise, it's not that he didn't run. He didn't let the enemy escape to prevent them from pursuing his crew. At that time, Roger was truly a demon. Luffy's expression now mirrors this demonic aspect. 2 years ago, Luffy could only run from admirals, but now he's grown to a point where he doesn't let the admirals escape. As I predicted in this video, a short series about Wano Country has started. The cover of this issue depicts Onigashima sinking at the site of the old Wano Country. The cause of the sinking is unclear, but there are two main possibilities. One possibility is that it was deliberately submerged in a lake in Wano Country. However, the only one likely capable of moving such a massive island would be Momonosuke. It seems unlikely that he would destroy Wano's wealth, especially since he likely knew from Sukiyaki that the old Wano Country was under the lake. The second possibility is that it naturally sank into the lake. After Luffy knocked Kaido down to the magma in chapter 1050, a massive eruption occurred. This explosion happened right next to Onigashima. It's plausible that this explosion destabilized the ground, causing Onigashima to sink. Previously, I analyzed hidden messages in a letter from Lily in this video. Combining my hypothesis with this letter's decryption, it reads, "Raise the dawn flag in a sinking world." This suggests that Onigashima sinking may be a metaphor for the impending doom of the world. By the way, I've seen the title of Yamato's cover story translated in some versions as Oni Child Yamato and the Holy Inari Shrine Pilgrimage, Volume 2, but its meaning in Japanese is a bit different. The kanji Inari refers to the deity of rice and other primary grains. If you've been to Japan, you might have seen this bronze statue. The Inari deity is depicted as a fox because the drooping rice stalks resemble tails and foxes hunt rice-eating mice. This kanji kin means gold. It was a fox who told Zoro that Wano country was once called the Country of Gold. Wano country being called the Country of Gold might have actual historical relevance. Marco Polo, an Italian, first introduced Japan to Europe as Zipang in his book The Travels of Marco Polo, where the legend of the Country of Gold is believed to originate from the stories about the Golden Hall of Chusenji Temple in Hiraizumi, Oshu. Such a place might exist in Wano country as well. I believe that gold was used in the design of Pluton and that this gold lies buried under Wano country, along with Pluton itself. And Yamato might end up seeing it. And this kanji is read as Daisan, referring to visiting temples or shrines on someone else's behalf. Likely, Yamato will visit the gods and shrines of Wano country in place of Odin. Odin ultimately set out to sea due to his encounter with Whitebeard. It seems Yamato's journey might end with an encounter with that pirate crew. I'll talk about all of this in the video. In this chapter, Luffy used a new technique called Dawn Symbol, which is written in kanji as manriki, referring to a vice, a tool that clamps an object between two jaws to hold it securely. You might now be thinking of Machvice from the Donkahore family. After using the Dawn Symbol technique, Luffy tossed Saturn and Borsalino like a pizza. Did you know Machvice's favorite food? It's pizza. And this kanji has been used before in a technique name. Do you remember whose it was? Yes, it was Kid's technique, which he tried to use to crush Kaido. Likely, the impression from that moment stayed with Luffy, inspiring him to come up with Dawn Symbol. Additionally, during the fight with Kaido, Luffy noticed Zoro adopting Kinemon's Kitsunebiryu techniques. So it seems plausible that Luffy, observing Zoro mimicking others' techniques, decided to try imitating Kid's technique as well. Let's focus on these scenes next. People who watched Vegapunk's broadcast repeatedly said this: his head is cut off. Many translations are incorrect, but this scene actually refers to his head being physically cut off. This is a play on words in Japanese. Atama ga kireru. Literally, it means his head is cut off, but it also conveys he is sharp. This phrase was also used for Kinemon when Kyoshiro mistakenly thought Kinemon had used his cunning to deceive Kanjuro. Such wordplay is frequently embedded in One Piece. I cover these details on my Patreon, so if you're interested, please visit that page. Additionally, the first thing Luffy said when he met Vegapunk was, "You remind me of Kinemon." Kinemon was believed to have died after being stabbed by Kaido, but survived due to the remnants of Law's ability. Similarly, I believe Vegapunk will somehow manage to survive. Let's take a closer look. Vegapunk often refers to himself as this. While many translated versions render this as a humble genius scientist, the Japanese term shiganai is an adjective that conveys a sense of being helplessly pitiable or unreliable. This is somewhat similar to how Borsalino describes himself as shachiku, reflecting a self-deprecating view. I've explained it in detail in this video. Despite not wanting to kill his friends, Borsalino feels compelled to follow the government's orders. And similarly, Vegapunk might be self-critical about his role under the world government as part of the Navy's science unit. Oda-sensei, the author, inserts this phrase persistently whenever Vegapunk appears, suggesting that these words likely carry significant meaning. As explained in this video, the Japanese language, with its combination of kanji and kana, is rich in wordplay. Shiganai is an adjective, but also hints at another meaning, shi-ganai, which can be interpreted as without death. Therefore, Vegapunk might be implying that he is a scientist who does not die. I'll share my hypothesis. At the moment of death, Vegapunk is reborn as Data, with all his memories and knowledge intact from his lifetime. Let's examine all the broadcast screens of Vegapunk in Chapter 1109. Did anyone notice something? The Vegapunk present here are Stella, Shaka, and Pythagoras. Their common trait is they are likely the Vegapunks who have died. He truly is a scientist who has transcended the concept of death. Atlas has also mentioned that whether one exists physically or not is a concept from the old era. This woman had no physical body, yet she existed there just like any normal human being. This means Stella, Shaka, and Pythagoras shown here are operating on the same principle. This implies that the footage is not recorded but is being streamed live. In Chapter 1109, Morgan speculated that it was a recorded video because the clock in the video showed a different time from Egghead's. However, Vegapunk has not made any remarks to suggest it's a recorded video. It's like the conversation is happening in real time. Let's also examine how this broadcast works. This wave is forcibly transmitted at maximum power through naval bases around the world. It seems that the Marines are unable to block this wave. These Marines are about as flustered as Lucci was when he couldn't turn off the sound in front of the 5 elders. I think this wave is something special. The clue to understanding it is the term satellite. Why did Vegapunk name his clones satellites? It's probably because he knows how satellites work. As evidence, there are several objects resembling parabolic antennas seen on Egghead. Parabolic antennas play a crucial role in space communications by both sending and receiving signals to and from satellites orbiting the Earth, as well as deep space communications with spacecraft beyond Earth's orbit. This means Vegapunk has already launched artificial satellites into space using rockets. The waves are being sent directly to the naval bases from space, which is why the Marines can't cut the communication. If the place where these Vegapunks exist as Data is not in the lab phase but inside an artificial satellite in space, that would explain why the time shown is different from Egghead's. However, there's still a possibility that his physical body could be revived, because Vegapunk has only been dead for a few minutes. If resuscitation is attempted here, there might still be a chance he could be revived. Interestingly, despite Luffy being in Gear 5th mode since Chapter 1107, the onomatopoeia indicating the drum-like beating of his heart has disappeared. During the fight with Kaido, Luffy nearly ages due to running out of energy. However, by forcibly increasing his heart rate, he was able to return to Gear 5th mode. At this moment, the drum sounds resonate again. If the drum beats again during the fight with the 5 elders, it might trigger Vegapunk's resuscitation. Next, I'll share my thoughts on the truth that Vegapunk is attempting to reveal to the world. Likely, the core of the story, the Void Century, involves the element of space. Vegapunk has carried forward the will of Ohara, advancing the study of the Void Century. It seems a significant catalyst for Ohara getting closer to the truth of the Void Century was deciphering the workings of the universe and the history of the moon and the blue planet. Indeed, many names associated with Vegapunk are related to space. When he makes a request, his catchphrase is Quasar, Quasars are the most distant objects observable in the universe, powered by supermassive black holes at the centers of galaxies. Typically, in Japanese, when asking someone for something, you would add "kuremasen ka?" to the T form of a verb, but Vegapunk replaces kuremasenka with quasar. This scene was initially published in Jump with kuremasenka, but was corrected to quasar in the Tankobon release, indicating that Oda-sensei pays particular attention to this catchphrase. And his name is Vegapunk. Vega, along with stars Deneb and Altair, forms an asterism known as the Summer Triangle, a prominent feature in the night sky used to mark the seasons. Punk might not seem related to space, but in fact, One Piece features a character like this. Big Pan from the Foxy Pirates. The origin of his name likely comes from the Big Bang, a leading theory explaining how the universe began. The term punk is used in his techniques. He is a half fishman and half giant, which might also relate to the origins of the One Piece world. Incidentally, the Foxy Pirates have a shark resembling space monsters found on Egghead. Foxy's ability, known as the No-Roma photon, emits special photons that, when bathed in this light, significantly slow down all actions of any being for a certain period. This might also be related to the exploration of space in the One Piece world. Where is Vegapunk from? He hails from the futuristic kingdom of Baltimore on Karakuri Island. The origin of Baltimore likely comes from the galactic bulge, which in astronomy refers to a densely packed group of stars within a larger star formation. This futuristic nation is also hinted to have produced another genius. Yes, the beloved Dr. Tsukimi. For some reason, he was able to create robots with emotions that also exist in the lunar city. Dr. Tsukimi probably incorporated lunar technology left behind in Baltimore. It seems Vegapunk has also inherited this technology. Several researchers, including Pythagoras and Edison, appear to have been created based on this lunar robot technology. When Luffy mentioned that Atlas's face had been repaired, Edison referenced having interchangeable face parts. The fact that the skull of this space pirate extends like Vegapunk's head is also intriguing. But here arises a question. Karakuri Island is supposed to be a bitterly cold winter island. This is why Vegapunk attempted to create a geothermal heating system to warm the entire island. However, the Karakuri Island where Dr. Tsukimi resided seems different. It looks more like an autumn island, not a winter one. Additionally, there's the difference in Japanese notation. When Frankie was sent to Karakuri Island, its name was written in hiragana. However, in the descriptions during the cover story, Enel's Great Space Operations, Karakuri Island is written in katakana. From this, we can consider two possibilities. The first is that Karakuri Island, where Dr. Tsukimi resided, was significantly in the past. It hasn't been clarified how long Lieutenant Spacey was unconscious in the hole. There's even a possibility that it might span centuries. The second possibility is the existence of a parallel world. While this might seem too far-fetched, the world of One Piece does contain different dimensions. Vegapunk was also conducting warp experiments, during which space-time was distorted. From these points, I think there's a good chance that Vegapunk will talk about space when revealing the truth of the world. That's because the enemies standing in Luffy and his crew's way in the future are stars. Zoro's move that defeated Lucci is called Kokoba, Speckles Hunt. The kanji used in this technique is speckles, which can be read as hyo, meaning leopard. Additionally, this character includes elements that represent tiger. In this video, I predicted that Zoro would defeat Lucci with a tiger hunt. Although it wasn't exactly tiger hunt, this technique is an evolved form of it. The term kokoba likely originates from kokoba hell. In Buddhism, various hells exist, including the 8 hot hells and 8 cold hells. Kokoba hell is one of these, along with others like Atada hell, Kakaba hell, and Makahadoma hell. These hells are named for the transformations bodies and voices undergo due to extreme cold. Interestingly, translations like Hahava or Huhuva have appeared, likely due to translation errors. The explanation that the cold makes it hard to open the mouth, resulting in only being able to say Huhuva, was mistakenly used as the name of the technique. The correct nuance is Kokoba Speckles Hunt. By the way, the word Kokoba uses the kanji for tiger twice. Personally, I think Madaragari alone has a cool ring to it. So, why did Oda-sensei add the word Kokoba, which is relatively unfamiliar even in Japan, to this move? I believe there are 2 reasons. Firstly, it might be because Zoro, having obtained the sword Enma in Wano country, symbolically declared himself to be the King of Hell. The second reason might relate to the appearance of the 5 elders at Egghead. It suggests that they might have already experienced hell. I theorized that the 5 elders were transformed into supernatural beings by a certain ability user. If they are indeed supernatural, their existence would be tied to the soul, allowing them to reach the underworld after death, similar to how Brook could access the afterlife. This concept of the afterlife connects with Japanese mythology and Buddhism. For more detailed information, please refer to other videos on these topics. In essence, my theory is that Egghead has already become a hellish place due to the appearance of these supernatural beings, and Zoro's technique was named after hell to hint at this transformation. When Sabo faced the 5 elders and Imu in their supernatural forms at Maria Joie, he said, "I never imagined hell would be at the top of the world." This might not just be a metaphor. This place in Maria Joie could literally be connected to hell. There is one character who has peered into this hell, Wa-Pol. His catchphrase is kaba, which resembles the word baka, meaning fool in Japanese. It's possible that his phrase derives from Kakaba, one of the names of hell I mentioned earlier. As I noted before, the Kakaba hell is an extremely cold hell, and Wa-Pol hails from the snowy Drum Kingdom. He too might become linked to a storyline involving hell in the future. While Luffy, Dory, and Brogy are battling the 5 elders, Marcus arrives at the lab phase. It seems he and York are working to stop Vegapunk's broadcast. However, knowing that the outcome of the Egghead incident will shock the world, I personally believe this broadcast can't be stopped. Given the groundbreaking revelation about the world's truth that Vegapunk is set to reveal, perhaps Oda-sensei has chosen this moment for a 3-week hiatus. If the 5 elders fail to stop Vegapunk's broadcast, their next step might be to consider resetting the world itself. In that case, one of the 5 elders might head to the first floor of Building B to acquire the Mother Flame. If the world government begins drastic actions, it's certain we're heading into a global conflict. In fact, a final battle akin to Ragnarok might have already started. This is because the next chapter frequently introduces words and hints related to Norse mythology. The technique is written as Sun Shield and read as Svalin, which is a shield mentioned in Norse mythology. Furthermore, this chapter includes a map indicating the characters' current locations. Does anyone notice something about it? Yes, the map likely reflects Yggdrasil from Norse mythology. Then Dory blew the war horn, signaling the giant warrior pirates to retreat. In Norse mythology, the sounding of this horn signifies the onset of Ragnarok, indicating that a global conflict has already begun. Additionally, the depiction of an iron giant enveloped in flames and colored black suggests the giant Surtur, who scorches the world during Ragnarok. Interestingly, this iron giant was apologizing to Joy Boy, but its speech sounded more mechanical than human. Normally, the word sorry would be written in hiragana in such contexts. There are still many mysteries surrounding this giant, but here I'd like to share my theory on the true identity of this iron giant with you. In the world of One Piece, there's a mysterious continent known as the Red Line that divides the world's seas into two. Actually, this is not just a continent. In the original version of this scene, Marco doesn't refer to the Red Line as a continent. Furthermore, whales other than Laboon also show signs of ramming their heads against the Red Line. Why is that? This oddity can be explained by the sudden appearance of ancient robot in Mariajois 200 years ago. Currently, the Iron Giant seems to be responding to the rhythm of Luffy, now transformed into Nika and is about to start moving. In Chapter 1092, lights were seen in the area corresponding to its eyes, accompanied by this sound effect, commonly used to depict the ignition of flames or light. However, the sound effect in Chapter 1106 is clearly different, resembling the noise of computers and other machinery starting up. Another sound effect represents the noise of iron scraping. This means the Iron Giant is starting to move. There was no reaction during the first awakening of Nika, but each subsequent awakening has triggered a stronger response. This suggests that Nika's heartbeat contains the energy needed to activate the ancient robot. It seems the energy needed for the Iron Giant to start moving has been replenished through 3 awakenings of Nika. Yet many mysteries remain about the Iron Giant, particularly where it came from and why it suddenly started moving 200 years ago. Let's consider where the Iron Giant could have originated from. I believe the technology showcased by Vegapunk in the Egghead Arc holds clues to the emergence of the Iron Giant. In Chapter 1067, Vegapunk discusses the Iron Giant, but there are parts of the conversation that seem out of context. Does anyone remember? First, let's organize the flow of conversation between Vegapunk and Luffy's crew in this chapter. Bonnie has come to Egghead to turn Kuma, who had been turned into a human weapon, back to normal. Upon finally reuniting with Vegapunk, Bonnie attacks him with a saber, which turns out to be a failed invention attracting bugs. It seems like it even attracted a spider, by the way. It was mysterious why Oda-sensei had Bonnie faint at this point, but it became clear later that it was to prevent her from noticing Luffy's heartbeat when he turned into Nika during his fight with Lucci. We now understand the significance of Bonnie meeting Nika. And related to that failed creation saber, the conversation shifts to the topic of Momonosuke's devil fruit, which was considered a failure merely because of its different color. Then, Luffy asks Vegapunk about the giant robot, leading to a detailed discussion about the Iron Giant that suddenly appeared in Mariajois 200 years ago. The problem comes afterward. For some reason, Vegapunk mentions that Luffy and the crew entered from the Fapirio phase to the scrapyard, explaining that to enter there, they had to pass through an invisible wall. When Oda-sensei seemingly inserts unrelated topics into conversations, it's usually a hint that these topics will be relevant to future developments. For instance, during a conversation about the legendary devil fruit among the 5 elders in the Wano Country arc, Zunisha suddenly appeared. This conversation later connected to Zunisha's remark about the revival of Joy Boy. Indeed, the scene where Luffy and the crew are pursued by the Kuma police is quickly cut to the battle between Law and Blackbeard. When the scene returns to Egghead, Luffy and the crew have aged and are found in the scrapyard. Therefore, the insertion of the discussion about a wall that can be passed through during the explanation of the Iron Giant suggests that this technology is connected to the appearance of the Iron Giant, according to my hypothesis. Here's the conclusion. The technique to pass through walls is used in this unnatural part of the Red Port, and the Iron Giant robot emerged from inside the Red Line. When Lilith guided the Straw Hat crew to the lab phase, this door could be passed through the wall from the outside. However, once passed through, it turned into an iron wall, making it impossible to exit from the opposite side. I believe this technology is applied in reverse to the walls of the Red Line. Meaning, from the inside, it's possible to pass through the walls of the Red Line, but from the outside, it appears as just a wall. It becomes too grand a story to consider the entire Red Line as artificial, but I at least think the part of the Red Line directly below Maria Joie has been artificially filled in. This is also because it's unnatural for there to be a giant hole where Fishman Island is located. Therefore, I propose that such a gate-like passage existed before the Void Century. Marco's statement hints that the Red Line is not just a continent. In translated versions, it is only referred to as the Red Line, but in the original, Marco doesn't actually say Red Line in that scene. He says, the Red Wall. Let's also look at a past conversation between Marco and Whitebeard, where Marco refers to the Red Line as the continent of Red Earth. As I explained in this video, Japanese is a language that combines ideograms, kanji, and phonetic characters, kana, allowing a single word to intentionally carry two meanings. So, while it's read as Red Line, its meaning is the continent of Red Earth. Originally, Marco recognized the Red Line as the continent of Red Earth. However, now he refers to it as the Red Wall. This suggests that the Red Line being a continent of Red Earth is a facade, and it's actually an artificially created wall. This change in expression likely occurred after hearing from Whitebeard. Notably, Whitebeard is wearing a bandana at this time, resembling his appearance from 2 years prior. This means it was after hearing about the history of the D-Clan from Roger, and it's safe to assume he already knew the secrets of the Red Line. I'll discuss 3 hints that could explain this. First, when Shirahoshi visited Maria Joie for the Leveille, she asked a guard, "Is that green thing a forest?" The guard replied, "Yes, though it's artificial." This suggests that natural plants don't grow on the Red Line. Likely, the area around Maria Joie on the Red Line isn't a continent of Red Earth, but an artificially created wall. In our world, red soil is difficult for most plants to grow in, though some, like grapes that are resilient to dry conditions, are cultivated. This fundamentally differs, indicating the significance of the Revolutionary Army bombing Marie Joie food stores and destroying ships carrying food to Marie Joie. And the second crucial hint involves the behavior of island whales. Do you remember why Laboon started ramming his head against the Red Line? It began when Crocus informed Laboon about the Rumbar pirates' demise. Laboon, seemingly in denial of this fact, started to continuously headbutt the wall. Initially, it appeared that the head injuries were a unique issue rather than a characteristic behavior of island whales. However, just before entering the New World, Luffy and his crew encounter several island whales, some of which had similar scars on their heads, like Laboon. This mystery is also highlighted in the One Piece magazine. I've shared translations and analyses of the article about Laboon on my Patreon for members. If you're interested, please check it out. So, why did other whales also have scars on their heads, like Laboon? It's unlikely that all the whales were mourning a separation from someone. The key lies in this statement. Island whales' heads contain a fluid known as brain oil, which they use to emit sonar waves for obstacle detection and prey location. They can also recognize music. Whales in the real world can substitute echolocation for vision. This means they rely not on visual information for obstacle and prey detection. Yes, you might have realized it by now. If a door similar to the one Lilith passed through, which can only be passed through from one side, were installed in the red line. The whales, which do not rely on visual information, might not realize the barrier of the red line in front of them and could end up bumping their heads against it. The fact that Luffy and his crew encountered island whales with head injuries at this particular point is likely not a coincidence. For these whales, which do not depend on visual information, it might be a source of frustration that, although they can perceive the world on the other side, they are actually hindered by a barrier of advanced technology from reaching it. Let's look at the mysterious flower room last. This room is lush with natural trees that are clearly not artificial. It is likely the tip of the Sunlight Tree Eve. Fishman Island lies directly beneath Maria Joie. According to Neptune, the reason sunlight is supplied to Fishman Island is because the Sunlight Tree Eve captures light at the surface and illuminates its roots. However, there's no sign of the Sunlight Tree Eve around Maria Joie, which sits directly above Fishman Island. Instead, it's all covered by the red line. So where does the light come from? Probably from this room. The Sunlight Tree Eve exists inside Maria Joie, supplying light to Fishman Island through the light it gathers there. Upon hearing Neptune's explanation, Usopp commented, "So the Sunlight Tree Eve is like the boss of the Yarukiman mangroves in Sabaody." This implies the area around here was originally part of the Yarukiman mangrove region. And, as discussed in this video, the Sunlight Tree Eve must have once towered in its center. Looking at the scenery of Red Port, it's clear that the Yarukiman mangrove ecosystem remains. This area was likely part of the mangrove, but the installation of a wall that can only be passed through from one side has made it appear as though the ecosystem abruptly ends. If it's true, as I've suggested in this video, that the wall can only be passed through from the inside, the interior might be hollow, hiding the original Sunlight Tree Eve within the red line. So far, we've speculated that the Iron Giant emerged in Maria Joie through a door that allows passage from inside the red line, but a lingering mystery remains. Why did it suddenly start moving 200 years ago? If this Iron Giant was created during the Void Century and still had energy, it's unnatural that it didn't activate between 800 and 200 years ago. A possibility is that 200 years ago, ancient energy was temporarily supplied, triggering the Giant's activation. Currently, it seems to be reacting to the rhythm of Nika and starting to move. The detailed description of the Iron Giant was given in Chapter 1067, where it's depicted appearing in Maria Joie with a spear, suggesting that 200 years ago, there was someone who emitted energy similar to Nika's liberation drum. Incidentally, Dory and Brogy appeared in Egghead in Chapter 1106, but their first appearance in Little Garden was in Chapter 116. Let's also look at Chapter 167, similarly excluding Zero. It might be a coincidence, but people are doing the Nika dance. It's possible that Oda-sensei brought the scene where the Iron Giant moves to Chapter 1067 as a hint that it's related to the dance in Chapter 167. However, it seems unlikely there was an awakening of Nika 200 years ago. The world government stated that the Hito Hito no Mi, model Nika, had not awakened for hundreds of years. Additionally, Zunisha mentioned that it was the first time in 800 years it heard the liberation drum, suggesting a different cause provided energy to the Iron Giant 200 years ago. In fact, a significant event in the world of One Piece happened 200 years ago. Most notably, the ancestor of Ipponmatsu started the arms shop. Another piece of news is that the world government announced friendly relations with Fishman Island, making the Ryugu Kingdom a member state of the world government. Furthermore, the Ryugu Kingdom participated in that year's Leveille. This means that, like Shirahoshi attending the Leveille, the mermaid princess at that time might have visited Marie-Joie. If she, like Shirahoshi, was a mermaid princess endowed with the power of Poseidon, it's entirely possible she could have provided the energy needed to activate the giant robot. Poseidon is an ancient weapon. The word Kodai means ancient, a term not frequently used in One Piece. Let's organize the scenes where the term Kodai is used: ancient weapons, ancient mechanical soldiers, ancient energy. Therefore, it can be considered that these three were all created around the same time. It's natural to think that the power of Poseidon could also affect the Iron Giants. It's conceivable that the world government allowed the Ryugu Kingdom to join them 200 years ago, after witnessing the formidable power of Poseidon, not wanting to antagonize the Fishman race. Perhaps they even hoped to eventually harness Poseidon's power for themselves. Additionally, 200 years ago, Dressrosa became home to a herd of fighting fish. While it wasn't explicitly stated where they came from, I believe they likely migrated from the Calm Belt. Odin's flashback, when Roger visited the Ryugu Kingdom, the gates of Fishman Island were destroyed by the Sea Kings, which, as Charlie explained, was due to the Sea Kings rampaging in anticipation of the birth of the mermaid princess, Shirahoshi. I think a similar event occurred 200 years ago. The Sea Kings, normally docile, became agitated in anticipation of another mermaid princess's birth. This agitation likely caused the fighting fish residing in the Calm Belt to flee to Greenbit in shock. The Sea Kings made statements such as, "Our king is about to be born, and it will work this time, just a little longer," suggesting that there had been previous attempts at achieving something with the birth of their king that had not been successful. It's likely that one of these attempts involved a mermaid princess born 200 years ago. Here's a bonus piece of information for those who have watched this far. I want to suggest one more possibility about the red line directly below Marie-Joie before concluding this video. In chapter 1106, Vegapunk utters a profound line. "Buster calls are futile. There are those who have awaited his arrival for centuries all around the world." I speculate that someone, or some people, may be living quietly within the red line itself. The Eve Tree can transmit light and air, so the interior of this part of the red line could surprisingly be bright and possibly inhabited, much like Crocus lived inside a whale, or the newcomers lived in Impel Down's level 5.5. Morley creating makeshift rooms within the grounds of Marie-Joie might have been a hint to this. So if someone is living inside the red line, who could they be? The biggest hint might be in Doflamingo's words, the D-Clan, smoldering at the bottom of history. Where and when will they reveal themselves? Tell the celestial dragons of Marie-Joie, you will be dragged down. Did you notice the oddity here? Yes, this is what Doflamingo says after being defeated by Luffy, a member of the D-Clan. Despite the fact that Garp, Dragon, Luffy, and Blackbeard, all bearing the D initial, have been revealed to the world, Doflamingo speaks as if the D-Clan has yet to show itself. This raises the hypothesis that members of the D-Clan may still be living somewhere. Focus on the phrase, the bottom of history. The current world government has been crafting the world's history since the Void Century by erasing any facts that occurred during those lost 100 years. And it's possible that the D-Clan exists at the very bottom of Marie-Joie,